and happy Easter. This week is a little different. We're live on your channel too, right, Constantine? Right?
We
Live
are.
on your channel? Yes. Okay, so usually it's just Constantine and I that go live, and as you can see, there is 3 additional beautiful faces. That is because they are part of the Right-Minded Thinkers in the Big Miracle Energy Patreon. You've heard me talk about in the past that we have a live discussion once a month, and I have alluded to bringing a second live discussion that actually goes live on YouTube. And Easter was coming up, so I messaged some of the people in the group and was like, "Hey, let's chat live on YouTube about kind of what we're starting to see, what Easter believes, or like how we resonate with Easter." And I think one of the main pieces, at least, that I'll discuss is like how Jesus, what he symbolizes in my life, and what the crucifixion and the resurrection, and just how my thoughts have changed, and how, yeah, it just shows up in my life today. So here we are. If you're tuning in, thank you so much. You are always welcome to comment. We can see your comments live and respond if you have questions or just feedback that you want to provide. But ultimately, we're just a group of people trying to remember truth. So let's keep it positive and try not to be attacking one another. Leave judgment at the door and just be open to like beautiful discussion. So yeah, I guess I'll kind of start because this was my idea. And
Actually, if I may, before we start, I
yeah,
have a question for you.
yeah,
Now, we mentioned Jesus, right? Like, immediately what comes to my mind is, oh, religion. Can we debunk that right away? This versus religion, and,
yes,
if this is religious in any way or not?
yeah. So thank you for bringing that up, Constantine. Let's throw like traditional religion out the door for this conversation. I think it might come up in reflection, but ultimately, this conversation is really about the symbolism in our own lives personally. Like Tommy and Kay may be different than what Jesus symbolizes in my life, or it might be the same, but it's really not based on a organized religion per se. Yeah, I guess that's how I would answer it. So this isn't like a Sunday sermon. This isn't a, discussion of your traditional Easter beliefs. I would say my belief system is really based off of A Course in Miracles. If you're familiar with the Course in Miracles and how it describes Jesus and the symbol and Easter. Yeah, I think, is that helpful, Constantine?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I actually dropped a video here on YouTube 2 days ago, and it was the Easter video that I recorded like shortly after I had really started to intellectualize and beginning to embody and integrate the belief system of the Course in my life. And I re-listened to it. It was so passionate, you guys. I don't know if any of you saw it, but I almost didn't post it. Well, you probably, I mean, I know you did, Kay, at least I think last year, the Easter post. And then Tommy, I'm not sure if you had an opportunity yet, or Constantine. But I was like on fire. And I remember thinking back that today I was listening to Ken, and Ken was talking about that even if you weren't raised a Christian, this is a Christian world, a world that's really based on Christianity. He even brought up the fact that you can't watch a football game without seeing at least one player do the cross or thank God or thank Jesus for whatever happened in that game that day. So even if like you didn't have those core beliefs yourself, Jesus was somehow presented in society in some way. And for me, I was brought up, in the church, and more or less just because that's what happened with my generation, not because my family was big churchgoers. So I always saw Jesus as the guy hanging on the cross. Jesus as the guy with the thorns around his head, and he had to go through this awful, gruesome death because we're a bunch of bad people that if he wouldn't have been sacrificed, we would just like, I don't know, have this awful life. I guess I didn't really explore that more. But when the course introduced to me that, like, no, that's the ego belief system. That's the belief system of fear, of pain and suffering, and just like all these things that I had been trying to grapple and heal through, inner child work and different things like that, was like, it's because you're identifying with that. You're
Mm.
identifying with the crucified Jesus. And the moment I realized I didn't have to, I was like pissed. I was pissed and like excited and just like super passionate. You can see that in the video. And where I am today is really just like, I don't even know, like this release of anything to do with the symbolism of the crucified Jesus, other than its reminder of what happened on, Easter Day, which is the resurrection, him coming up from the tomb, and ultimately, to me, that's like he's telling you none of this ever mattered. I didn't die. I couldn't die because I wasn't actually living. This body doesn't matter because look at, hey, I'm like flying around. I think I said in my video, I'm like, I wish he would have came back and morphed into all these different animals. Maybe we would have like actually got the point of the body doesn't matter instead of him coming back in the actual body so that we could be like, oh, the body does matter. But I don't know. I'm beginning to ramble. That's a little bit of the background of why I thought this would be a cool discussion, because I think it's just one of those places that, first of all, we don't often venture to because it's seen as, well, Patrick, what did you say to me? People will probably see my video as blasphemy, and they may see this conversation as that. When you're brought up traditionally, you're not meant to question it or to come up with a different narrative. And you guys know, like, I'm like, if you can't be curious about something, then what's the point? So let's get curious. Patrick, unless you have something to say, I'm gonna mute our microphone, and I would love to hear from anybody else what your thoughts are.
Well, I can start, and for what the crucifixion means, I would say the resurrection means to me, it's more about hope. Like hope there's more beyond the body, beyond this physical world that we see and hear and uh, taste, the five senses. So that's essentially I see. Like, so Easter is a hopeful time. I don't really think about the crucifixion as a lot of people identify with the crucifixion, but I like to identify with the resurrection personally. But.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to say. So if I sounded really gloom and doom, that's not what I meant. But it's a day of hope and remembrance. Anybody want to take it away? I'm gonna mute. So
Well, let's go down the list. I'll put Tommy on the spot. We'll go down.
Oh. Yeah, so can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Brother, let's do it.
Okay, great. Yeah, for the crucifixion and the resurrection, for me, is really, it's a symbol of remembrance, and it's a symbol of what the truth is. And the truth is that we're already in the kingdom of heaven, right? And this is a dream, and this is an illusion. And really, I feel like most of Jesus' teachings up and through his resurrection was teaching us how the tribulations of the world, including death and including betrayal, abandonment, and suffering, physical and emotional, are like tribulations of the world, and shouldn't, or not to say shouldn't, but they don't necessarily, they're not necessary, and they don't, like Jesus says multiple times, for example, if you have faith in me, then you'll be saved. Everything is okay. And he also says, drop everything and follow me, where these materialistic things and these ego-driven things and these ego-driven emotions, they're not truth. and that is and it's of the ego. So Jesus for me is a remembrance of spirit in the human form. So it's easier to relate to and find the guidance from.
Love it. Ashley, I feel like you want to say something. Go ahead.
I just want to say, yeah, I love that, Tommy. I think it's absolutely beautiful remembrance of truth and kind of the statement. And I love how you really just talked about like the symbolism that Jesus is for you, like what he symbolizes. And I think that's a big thing is like we're so focused on this guy 2,000 years ago and what he did. But if you really believe that time doesn't exist, then how is he any different than you here today? So it's really not about that guy. It's about what that guy symbolizes and how it symbolizes in, you know, Tommy showing up as Jesus today and Tommy doing what you know, the thought system of Jesus. That's what Jesus really is a thought system of unconditional love, and an eternal acceptance and just all the beautiful things. I mean, I wear my bracelet that says WWJD on my wrist, which used to be like a fashion, and this will date me, fashion statement back like in middle school days for me. And today now it's just that reminder of like, get back into that thought system. Think like Jesus. What would Jesus do in this moment? Well, the answer is always the same. He would forgive and he would be an extension of love. Like, so I can't, there's never any other option. So I love that. Sorry, I'll ramble on. Kay, did you want to share it all?
Sure, I'll share. I'll share a message that I feel like was kind of given to me by Holy Spirit, and if it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. And it was about abundance and access. And I've been trying to get a deeper understanding of what abundance means. I know that we typically think of abundance as having a lot of something and having access to that a lot of something, whether it be people or money, and knowing how to access that abundance. But what I wanted a deeper understanding of was what does abundance look like when we're talking about A Course in Miracles and the thought system of love or atonement, or however you define it. And so what Spirit gave me was like this side-by-side comparison. And the comparison was, with the ego thought system, abundance is evidence-based. It's quantified. And so what that means is that we have this false sense of security because we can quantify how many friends we have. We can quantify how much money we have. But the underlying issue is that there's this fear of losing what we feel we have in abundance and that we have access to. And with the Course in Miracles, abundance looks very different. But until we have an understanding of what that abundance and access looks like, as seen through the thought system from A Course in Miracles, we take the ego's idea of what abundance and access is and we try to apply that to this other thought system, and it doesn't work. Because the evidence-based thought system, like I said, offers us that sense of security and control, but you don't have that when you are operating from the thought system of A Course in Miracles. And so what it looks like in A Course in Miracles, when God says you have everything, what we take, well, I'll use my I language. What I take that to mean is if I have everything, then I don't want for anything. I don't need to want for anything, which is true. But the difference is that with the Course in Miracles, the past is gone and the future is not yet. And so you only have today. And so Holy Spirit is going to provide you with whatever it is you need for that day. Whether that's compassion of your credit card company saying, it's okay, you can't make this payment right now. We'll give you an additional 30 days and it won't hit your credit report. That is abundance as far as Holy Spirit is concerned. Or if it's a check coming in the mail the day before, and you're like, oh, well, that's a surprise. That wasn't supposed to be here for another 7 to 10 days. And finding out that day that the payment didn't clear on your account. But now you have this check that you received the day before that you can get to the bank to cover whatever was missing, whatever that deficit was. That's the abundance. And so we have access and we have abundance through Holy Spirit and through God, but it is going to look very different, and our perspective has to shift so that we can see where that abundance is and what that access is. So with the Holy Spirit, it's trust based, or if you want, faith based versus being evidence based. And I'll use an example from the show Chosen, because that's a tangible reference I can make that people can actually get to. But there's a scene in one of the episodes where Jesus he's healing people. And he's in this crowd, and there's a woman, she had a blood issue. She'd had it for 12 years, and she just knew that if she could touch, she just believed that if she could touch anything on Jesus, it didn't even have to be the person himself, but a thread. She just said, I just need to touch a thread and I'll be healed. And she fought her way through the crowd, and she touched one of his tassels, and she was healed. And he looked around and he said, someone touched me. The power has just left out of me. Someone has touched me. Who touched me? And she was sitting on the ground, and she looked up at him very sheepishly, and she said, it was me. And he said that, she said, I think she said, I knew that if I just touched a part of you, some part of you, that I would be healed. And he said, it's not me that healed you. It was your faith that healed you. And I think that's what the abundance and access is, and what the crucifixion represents, or the resurrection represents, is that when Jesus was here in person, he was limited. He was so limited to who he could access. And in that episode, he kept telling them, it's not me, it's your faith that heals you. You don't know me. All these strangers are coming up to him saying, teacher, teacher, heal me. It's like, it's not me that's healing you. It's your faith that's healing you. And so I believe that with the crucifixion and the resurrection, I mean, not only that was that perhaps an issue of forgiveness, a lesson in forgiveness, but with him not being here and trying to teach people about faith and having faith in God, and that's where your healing comes from, then it's unlimited. The people he could touch, the people that could be healed, is unlimited, because we're able to do that for each other if we have the faith and trust that that's possible and we can access it. So that's kind of what I got.
Love that. Okay.
What was
Love
given to me. So hopefully
Love
that made sense. And I didn't ramble too much.
Before I pass over to you, Ashley, 1 second. Let's give a shout out to Skyla in the chat. She was asking for us to say hi. So hi, Skyla. She's in your YouTube, Ashley.
Hi, Skyla. So, Kay, thank you, and thank you. First of all, thank you so much for being here, and for that message, because it was so beautiful and so true, and so many things came to my mind and of remembrance in that process of, Jesus, if we're going to refer to the chosen, Jesus going back home. And, in the book of Thomas, it's talking about, dang it, I can't remember the exact words, but essentially, like, Jesus can't heal in his own town because of the faith. The faith is not there because they knew him in a different state versus where he is at now. And how Oh yeah, words. I'm just almost beside words, but I so greatly appreciate your sharing and how you wrapped it in to the truth of the abundance and the belief in Jesus, and how that belief in the thought system of Jesus unlocks that limitless abundance. And then you so beautifully shared with us tangible representations. I think that's something people tend to get stuck on, like you said, like they need it, but also stuck on being able to see it in the different form of like getting grace from your credit card person for that day, right? It's not what we're used to seeing as needing for evidence of abundance, but fully opening yourself up to seeing all the abundance. So thank you. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I think the example with you might have to mute that, Ashley. With the example with abundance was really powerful for me as well, because and I think you and I talked about this in a previous conversation, perhaps offline. But yeah, my definitions of abundance were very different for most of my life, right? And I imagine everyone's definition is slightly different. But are you taken care of in the moment? And if you are you abundant or not? That's the question, right? And what you're saying, Kay, is that if you're taking care of in the moment, which you are taking care of in the moment, you're here now, then you are abundant. And that's such a beautiful way to look at it. I love it.
I think too, I want to say, like, I love how you brought abundance in, Kay, because I mean, I know, like, in our mind, what for me, when I think of Jesus, I think of abundance, but I don't think it's talked about very often. That his thought system, his symbolism, what he represented, is the access to that abundance, and that representation of that woman just touching the tassel. Like, if that's not ultimate abundance, I don't know what is. Yeah, sorry, I'm just like still like actively processing and remembering from everything you said, and my mind's just going like a million miles a minute.
He allowed people to feel abundant, even though she could have healed herself without him, but she just, she didn't know how to. It was like more like a placebo, because everyone has that ability to heal themselves with or without Jesus physically being there or not. But yeah, him being there just brought out the abundance in everyone.
Which actually brings up something really interesting there. That you just said, everyone has the ability to heal themselves. I love that. And unlike the rest of you here, I mean, Course in Miracles is still fairly new to me. I did listen to the Disciplines of the Universe at your recommendation, Ashley, but I'm still fairly new in all of that, so my views are all over the place. But this idea that we can heal anything and everything, I mean, that resonates deeply with me, because what I believe and what I've seen with my own eyes from my own life as well is that everything that's not going well in our life, or going well, doesn't really matter, has a reason and a purpose. And if you can identify the reason and a purpose and put a plan to change that for whatever better is for you, for your path, then whatever physical or whatever illness or disease you have will no longer have a purpose and a reason. And I strongly believe that anything that shows up in your life is coming there to give you a sign from above saying, hey, you're not on the right path. Perhaps go back, take a couple of different turns, and embark on the right path. And you don't even need to get to the destination. You just need to go on the right path, whatever right is for you in the case, and you start to heal. And actually, I think you and I talked about this. I had a situation come up, a really interesting example for me 2 weeks ago now. All of a sudden, during my work day, I started to develop a pain in my left hip. And it was started from like just a mild pain, just annoyance, to the point it got to like an 8 or a 9 in a few hours, to the point where I was limping. I couldn't really properly walk without much pain or even sit down to do my work. And old me would navigate right away into painkillers, book an appointment with my physio, chiropractor, massage therapist, whatever, just to get rid of the pain, as opposed to what I did this time, which was get curious, ask questions, and try to find the reason and purpose. And I use the word try there because that's what I did. I wasn't sure how to go about doing this. And then I looked at all my tools that I've developed or brought in over the last year and a half, and conversations with people like yourselves as well. And it was all about getting curious, asking the right questions, and saying, okay, well, what's happening here? Why is this coming up onto me like this? Yes, I can treat the symptoms, which is the pain and that, and maybe go get an MRI done or whatever needs to be done. But then I'm not actually dealing with the root of the problem. And I truly believe that that's spiritual in nature. And what I did that night is I went into meditation, a deep meditation. I got to understand why it's happening, began thinking of a plan, and by every day the pain subsided. So this was a Tuesday, by Saturday it was gone. I was walking normal. No pain right now. I have no way to explain it. How does it go from zero to incapacitating me and then back down to nothing over a couple of days, just because I got curious and asked questions, and the more I realized my plan, the more I got concrete on what I needed to change, the easier it became, and then it disappeared. Anyway, that's my take on how this might work. I'm still, I have many examples in my life of that, and now I'm starting to realize it, and I see it all over around me. But when we resist and when we fear the pain, when we fear the fear and run away from it, then we can't really fix much.
Yeah, Patrick wants to say something.
Constantine, what was that example that you helped heal your friend like a few weeks ago? Was it like a month ago?
You sent her so it was after your breath work, and you
Yes, I
hadn't.
forgot about that.
Yeah.
So what had happened is I had a beautiful breathwork journey experience, very deep for me, very visual. A lot of things happened for me. And I had this friend, someone I met through the podcast, but I hadn't really chatted with her for a while. She reached out to me to share some Reiki recording that she did. And something within me said, you know what, mention what happened to you because it's a cool experience. So I did. I said, hey, something cool happened. I'll mention it to you in a day when I can record something. So I recorded like an 11-minute clip that I shared with her. And when I say a clip, it was just an audio voice message on WhatsApp. I sent it to her. It was on a Friday night. And Saturday morning, she replies, and she's like, you can't believe what that just did for me. It allowed me to heal. I'm not going to go into her personal details, but a couple of different things that were troubling for her for the last 3 years, she said, or so. And just by me sharing my experience with her, just what I went through allowed her to heal. And it was literally like 11 minutes. That's it. And now it opened up the door to a friendship I never knew was possible in that regard, just because of me opening myself up, becoming vulnerable, authentic, and sharing my experience that allowed her to heal through listening to it and doing whatever she needed to get done on her end.
Did you want to talk about that?
No, I just
Remembered it?
yeah, it was remembering.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, it was just a good example of how just using another person, because we're all one, as like a mirror to
Yes.
be able to open yourself up one way or the other. It's just another example of that.
yeah. I think that's what I was going to reflect on was it's like it goes back to your example, Kay, of that Jesus doesn't heal. It was her faith that healed it. So like your friend, like your voice message to her did not heal her, Constantine. It was her openness and her readiness to heal, and then like just what you provided, that interaction was the remembrance or whatever necessary for her mind to allow the healing to occur.
You touched on something important, that it was the remembrance, because she literally used those words. By you sharing the story, it reminded me of certain things that happened in my life many years before, and how I should go do a bit more introspection on that. And through that process of remembering is how she healed. And all I did, I guess, my sharing just kickstarted everything for her.
But the cool thing is, like, I don't know, my mind goes down this rabbit hole of like the start. Tommy and I, when we were working one-on-one together, I don't know if I blew his mind when I brought this concept up, but he's like, we had great discussion around what if the ending has always been at the beginning? Like, what if instead of going to the end of the video game, we need to go back to the start because that's where the ending is? So, like, when you say your voice message was the start, Constantine, my mind just like starts going in this circle of like, where actually was the start and where's the end? And is, yeah, that was like a side note. But
I mean, if there is no time, there is no start and end. And if, right, and then the start could have been when her journey began, right? And this was just in the middle of it somewhere, a quest, a side quest that she went on. And it's like, okay, I forgot there's something on the main quest. I gotta go back.
I think that brings it full circle back to like Jesus and us, like, and you know, the push to focus on this man 2,000 years ago versus the realization that time doesn't exist. And if time doesn't exist, what is different between him and you other than he has chosen a thought system that maybe you have not chosen yet, or maybe you're in the process of fully choosing on a regular basis. I kind of shouted this out to Patrick while we were working out this morning. I was listening to Ken Wapnick, which if you're interested in the Course in Miracles and really want the fundamentals of it, Ken Wapnick is a beautiful teacher. He's no longer with us, but he says he's very straightforward. He's very much a college lecture person with that puts no shiny objects on it. And he says, there is no holy land here, and there is no holy people, because the mere projection of this world that makes the land is an unholy thought, and the mere happening of you being projected here was also due to an unholy thought. So we need to get past that there is nothing holy here. So quit fighting over holy land, quit fighting over a holy person or placing a person on a pedestal, because nothing that is projected in this illusion is holy. The only thing that can be holy is the thought with the Holy Spirit. And I was just like, I said it out loud to him, and he's like, what? But I think it's like a stark reminder. And I think back again, Kay, I keep circling back to you, but even like Jesus' statement to that woman could have been the same thing as like, I'm not the holy one. It's your thought, your faith, your belief that is the holy, that is the healer. Yeah. Kay, Tommy, do you guys have any? I'm just keep freaking rambling.
Well, those are all, it's all so beautiful. And for me, it's like in spirit is healing, right? And then also going back to what you said, spirit is the start. That being children of God and being in the ness dreaming, that's the start. And when we remember that that's who we are, and that's where the healing comes. So for Constantine, coming from that place of spirit, you brought that healing in, and then from also her part was remembering. So it was kind of like both of you guys remembering spirit at once and having that beautiful thing to happen.
Love it. Okay, did you want to add anything?
No, nothing's coming to mind.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess I never got around to sharing my take on the crucifixion and the resurrection. I'll be honest, I mean, I grew up in the Orthodox Church in Eastern Europe. We celebrated, of course, Easter. But for me as a kid, and even growing up in that environment, it was never about the actual meaning behind anything, right? It was just a time to eat good food and be with the people you like, and some people you don't like, I guess. And that's it. And then, of course, later in life, I became more of an agnostic, and then I actually distanced myself, and I thought everything was BS. But now, as I'm on my spiritual awakening journey, let's say, like many people are, I'm starting to realize that, I mean, obviously, every church, every religion is based in some form of, let's call it reality, or something real, right? And I was very resistant at the beginning of the idea of Jesus Christ, and because I equaled Jesus Christ with the church, like with Christianity. And I was like, well, not against it, but I'm not a believer in that, so then I can't believe this. So now it's all unpacking that and coming back full circle and realizing that I guess Christianity is just one interpretation with a lot of other stuff on top of it of what actually is. Like everything else, no one, the way I see it, no one has the answers. Everyone holds a piece of the puzzle. And that's, I guess, I wouldn't call it my job. A part of what I'm here to do is to remember and realize, okay, which pieces of the puzzle fit together for me the best. And that's it. And that will allow me to progress to realizing my purpose, my mission in life, whatever it is.
I think that's beautiful, Constantine. And a key thing I think you said there that I think for me it was a very long journey of figuring out was that nobody has your answers per se, right? I feel like when someone is trying to give you your answers, that's coming from the level of the ego. Because
Yes.
spirit knows you already have your answers, and like they know they have their answers, and they know that it's already all done, right? That's the biggest key. That's why spirit doesn't fight for you, isn't this loud, annoying voice that's giving you all these shiny objects to chase. That's the ego belief system. That's that of fear and sacrifice and separation. And spirit just is. You just are. And yeah, I don't know, I could blabber on. Do you have anything, Pat?
Well, if we're in the agreement, some people are, some people aren't. That the script's already written, and we're just following the script, the Holy Spirit script, and things might you might have a way of thinking or wanting things to go, but it, if you're follow the spirit, it most likely won't pan out exactly how you thought it was going to pan out, but it's always like down the road ends up being as good or not better than the way you had envisioned it from the get-go.
Yeah.
So that's just my take on like the whole
Surrender, trust.
yeah, like surrendering, trust, that, and that the whole thing, like everyone has a piece of the puzzle, as Constantine was saying, that the script is being played out a certain way, and then if it's like easier to just accept it as opposed to fighting it. Fighting it's the ego, and that's fearful.
It just happens. And I think you referenced The Chosen, Kay, and for me, I think it's a really beautiful representation so far. I've only seen the first 3 seasons. I think it's season 4 that's only in the theaters. And of course, they're going to eventually cover the crucifixion and the resurrection, I would assume, because that's a huge part of Jesus' story. But so far, I feel like literally someone who has a belief system, of like say the Course in Miracles or Hinduism or Buddhism or whatever, could have wrote The Chosen, could have directed it, because it's just very focused on love, I feel like, and forgiveness and acceptance of all. And of course, it covers the beautiful stories that are in the Bible. And like you said earlier, Tommy, or what I got from what you said is like these stories that are in the Bible of Jesus are really just good like lessons of how to like interact with the world, because the truth is we're still in the body. So it's like treat your neighbor, the abundance, and walking on water, and all those things that have to do with faith and have to do with kind of clearing your mind of all of the chatter and the ego belief system, and remembering truth. I always say I see him as like a big brother. And Ken, to this morning was like, He's not like the big brother that can carry you and do it for you. He's the big brother that, like, you have to follow him, you have to do the things, and then you have to grow up and become your own adult so then you can actually walk home with him. And I was like, okay, Ken. He's always just like calling me out on crap. But I still see him as the big brother, and I don't see him as the one that's carrying me. I see him as the one that's like, okay, Ashley, you want to learn to ride your bike? Now get your butt out here and, like, you got to get on the bike. But he's always there. He's always there to just, like, remind you, help you remember truth. I guess not remind you. Like, he's not going to come shove remembrance in your head. You have to, like, ask for it and seek it and be open to it. And that's where I think the healing comes in too. The more and more I've unpacked that in my own, the more aware I am in the moments that I don't want to heal, that I don't want to feel better. Like, I'll be sitting there being like, okay, like, you know, this is just me pushing away the love of God. I know that. And then there's like this internal knowingness of like, what you're saying to yourself right now is a bunch of BS. You really don't want to accept it. Therefore, you are going to suffer right now because you have chosen it. And I'm like, dang it. Like, we did it again.
I want to add something that actually, because it's so beautiful. I mean, I find myself often, not often as much as before, but still often enough in my mind. But I'm like, I know what I need to be doing, but yeah, I'm okay to sit here. And one of my mentors, a spiritual mentor as well, he came up with something the other day. Well, he told me something that really resonated with me. It's like, it sounds like in this life, in this illusion, you can never not be human, which means that you're always going to have these choices presented, right? And sometimes you're going to make the right choice, sometimes you're not going to make the right choice, and that's okay. But it's fine that acceptance and forgiveness and not going down the route of shame and guilt and judgment to ourselves, I mean, right? Because that's going to, of course, show up externally as well. And that's been a bigger one for me in the last few weeks. I've been challenged with it quite a bit because I thought I did a lot of work on removing judgment towards myself and shame and guilt and all that. And now it was just very surface level that I did. And I was like, oh, okay, I see how this shows up in my life now. So, yeah, that's what came up when you're talking about this. I figured I'd share it. Back to you, I guess.
No, I love that. And I'd invite you in, Constantine, to just like take a step back and be the observer. Your words, like throughout this call today, and a lot of times when we interact, there's always a wrong choice or a right choice, or to go back and get back on the path because you made the wrong choices. And right there is doing exactly what you just said. You know, like, there really is, like, if you're really trying to work through the judgment, that would just be something that I would invite you in to start, like, trying to release and just honor that I don't think there is a wrong choice. And I don't think there's a right choice. There's just choice.
Well said.
You know? And then when it comes to, like, the belief system, people probably are like, well, Ashley, you say you should choose the Holy Spirit. Well, if you've watched any of my videos far enough and gone up the ladder with me, you realize that's what I had to know early on when my thought system was still very much in that, like, wrong choice, right choice. And like the Course in Miracles talks about, and Jesus says, like, he first talks to you as the baby you are, and you must be talked to like a baby, right? You can't use elaborate words or elaborate understanding with a baby, but eventually, as you untie the ego belief system, you're able to see, oh, it was never a choice. It was just not listening to the ego and just being, like, you just are. So it's not, early on in my videos, I'll be like, well, you got to choose love, because that's how I had to resonate. Now I know it's like, that's just what I am. So if I just don't choose, meaning don't choose the ego belief system, I just am. I just am love.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Does.
Tommy and Kay, like, I know you guys have kind of been on that journey as well, and Patrick, like,
Yeah, for me, oh, sorry. Were you going to speak? So for me, when you said Big Brother, it brought up a conversation that we had, which was almost imagine it as the Holy Spirit has your script and already has everything that's happened and is kind of not telling you exactly what to do, but having these little snippets and this little voice kind of guiding you towards a certain direction, and really fully living in that. And like you said, where it's not a choice, but it's living in it. So it's living in that voice and it's living in that guidance.
Okay, you want to share?
I'll share. What came to mind for me is that if it makes you feel any better, the fact that you're here, um, you can take comfort in knowing that you've already made the wrong choice because you're here. That's what Ken would tell you. You're here because you made the wrong choice. So you don't have to worry about making wrong choices because that's already happened. And that's why Ken says it's not that his wording is, it's not that you choose Holy Spirit. It's like Ashley said, not choosing ego, because you already made the choice to be here. So the focus then is on constantly not choosing the ego, not choosing the ego response. And it really, for me, it's really a shift in perspective. Like what your experiences are, if the script is already written, you can change, you can't maybe not change the script, but you can change your experience in the scripts. And that can be shifted just by your perspective, and your perspective shift happens when when you don't choose the ego, when you choose to look at a situation. And it says to shift, you ask Holy Spirit to shift my perspective. Holy Spirit is not going to change things, but Holy Spirit can guide your thoughts and help that shift in perspective happen so that you can see where your abundance is, or you can see where you're being guided, because the Holy Spirit is your guide, and he walks with you in love, and he shows you the way to go. And so it's just a matter of allowing that shift in perspective to be there and see the love in the situation through the lens of love versus through the lens of fear. So that's what came to mind for me.
Yep, I love that. That's perfect. Like you already done made the wrong choice. Okay, move on. Next. That was great, Kate. I love that. And I forget that Ken. Yep. Beautiful. Constantine, what do you think of that?
I got nothing to add. I mean, it's beautiful. I love it.
Well, and I mean, I know our topic was Easter, and some people might be tapping in and being like, how does this have anything to do with Easter? And it has everything to do with Easter, because Easter literally represents all of this. It's the reminder that you made the wrong choice, but you don't have to keep making the wrong choice, right? Like that's what Kay's saying. Like you already done made the wrong choice. Now, like Jesus, he stopped making that choice. In the illusion, he was like, no more. And again, I'm gonna go back to the chosen. Gosh, we're so blessed to have the chosen. Of you could just see it in him. Like people would come to him. I remember Simon was like, Jesus, so and so wants to like be your follower and this and that. And you can see the scarcity and you can see the separation. You can see all that. And Jesus is just like stoic, and you just feel the love and the lack of judgment. And he's like, gives Simon no response other than a response of love. And you can see in that moment that Simon, it just like blows everything away, because when you're sitting in spirit, like that person can't not see the reflection of spirit. And I know for Patrick, like in our relationship, he's been huge for that for me, where like when our relationship first started and I was really working through still a lot of the ego belief system, around relationship. Well, I mean, we ultimately know what it was, shame and guilt of leaving God, but at the surface level, relationship, I was like, I'm leaving. That's it. I'm packing up. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Like, I did it at least 4 times because I'm a fight or flight. Like, I'm the one that's out of here. Like, the second things get really uncomfortable, I'm out of here. And he would just come up to me and hug me and just be so like in this place of love that at first I would escalate and get even more frustrated. And then it just would like, I would just crumble and I would just start bawling like a small child on the floor. But if he would have met me with the ego belief system, met me with attack and would have been like, fine, leave, we're over, blah, 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 then it just would have been attack, and we would have created more ego belief system. But you can't continue the attack when one side is in that place of love. And I think that's what Jesus did for everyone he came in contact with. And then, of course, we see the ones that really, like, they felt it, but they weren't willing to, like, own up to it. So then that's when they have to project out because his love was so uncomfortable. And then, of course, we see, like, what happens when that happens. And they nail him to a cross and they, sacrifice him. And I'm not well enough versed probably on the Bible to fully speak of that story, but yeah. And then Jesus is like, haha.
Yeah.
Here I am. Just kidding. Like, that's what I imagine if I were Jesus. I'm like, I'm back. But that's kind of ego. Yeah. Any thoughts, anyone? Now I've gone on a rabbit like a.
I'll give like a more crude example is like with someone, like let's say if someone like flicks you off on the road or something and you like wave back to them, they have no response to it because you're meeting their attack with the Holy Spirit and they're just confused and they're like, they just go away. It's like,
but you have to really be coming from spirit because what goes in my mind is like the person that's like meets attack with like vengeance, like fake niceness, whatever that's called, where they're like, haha, I'm gonna wave to you because you're pissed off, but really that's attack with attack.
Yeah, if it's genuine.
Yeah, so you gotta really be coming from a place of love.
Yeah.
I don't know, I went down a rabbit hole. Anybody have thoughts? Kay's like, Ashley, oh great.
Okay, you can't stop laughing.
Anyone? Anything?
No, I'm taking it all in. No, it's a beautiful example that you give, Ashley, and Patrick as well, right? There's not much else I can add, to be honest, to this conversation. And as we're coming up on the hour, I figured I'll let the people that are more in the know to wrap it up for us.
But I want to say something to that, Constantin, because when I proposed this, you were like, well, that's not really something I'm well versed on. And Patrick immediately said, well, I'm not either. Do you want to say why that was your response?
Well, I wasn't versed on.
Yeah. Do you remember?
Not really. What was the reason? Do you know?
Well, I think it goes to the point that we're all equally spiritually poor. So it's like no one is of a level of hierarchy here. We all have access to the same mind and same amount of remembrance. And as Kay so eloquently reminded us, we all made the bad decision or the wrong decision already. We made the wrong choice. That's why we're all here. So we equally are here. And I think, well, I know for me, one of the greatest things that I try to work on every single day that the course has taught me is that there is no level of hierarchy. And the second I make a level of hierarchy is when I create judgment. So even when I'm working with my clients, I'm like, granted, I am given this false sense of you're the coach and they've hired me. I still try to do my best to equal the playing field. Yes, it's their time to process, but I always let them know, I'm learning, I'm receiving just as much from you as you are from me. This is a two-way, I heal, you heal, we're one, we heal together. And so I don't think that I know anything better than Tommy, better than Kay, better than you. Yeah, maybe I can like recite some statements from the Course in Miracles or from the Bible or certain things more accurately or less accurately than someone else, but all of that's part of the illusion, so it's all just as fake. So when we're on these conversations, my hope is that the real focus is at the level of content, which is like us just sitting here being in spirit. And the form piece, like if Kay says a beautiful quote from the Course, or Tommy says a beautiful quote from Matthew, the book of Matthew, that doesn't mean anything more or less. It's just that's how they're expressing spirit, which is all equal. Did my point does everybody get what I'm saying? What I was trying to get across?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
Yeah.
you're basically just saying everyone has the answers, and you're trying to help everyone remember the answers in one form or another.
Yeah.
Just remembrance.
And I think like for me, when I'm speaking to someone or whatever, and a passage from the Course comes up for me, I take that as spirit needing me to, spirit reminding, like you said, reminding me. Like I'm not. It's not so much for the other person as much as it's for me. Like this is something that I need to remember. This is something that I need to, a passage that I need to operate from. Um, and yeah, it's not that you're being preachy or anything like that. It's really you, um, taking those words that are coming to mind, and letting them like seep down into the soil and become part of their root system, so that you can operate from that space, and continue that process of taking apart that ego thought system that's just raging inside, so that you can get to that point where you can be love and really truly embody that. And yeah, so thank you for that.
Beautifully said. Well, so we're at time. We're at 11:31. If anybody wants to like have a parting thought, I guess my biggest parting thought for today is it's a beautiful day, just like every day, because all we have is the present, of remembrance of truth that, like you said earlier, Tommy, we've never left the kingdom of heaven. We're still there. We're just having this elaborate dream we decided to create. Um, and it's all about not choosing. It's about remembering. No, stop choosing. Stop trying to manipulate. Instead, sit back, eat your popcorn, sit with your brother Jesus today and the Holy Spirit, and just be love. Anybody else having final parting thoughts?
Let's sum it up well for me.
I feel inclined to share. So you mentioned the book. You mentioned the book of Matthew, and that's funny because as you were saying that, a verse did come into my head, and I don't know the exact quote, but it goes along the lines of when you build your house on the rock, the wind and the storm can brew and it can beat on the house, but it'll never take it down. But if you build your house on the sand, and then the wind blows and the storm comes, the house will tear down. And I feel like it's a beautiful representation of where is our foundation and where does it lie. And for me, that's where it lies in spirit, and it lies in the guidance of Jesus, and coming back to Easter and the resurrection. And that's what grounds me into like not going into the ego, or not going back into the ego, or not letting the ego feed into guilt and feed into shame.
Love it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Tommy, Patrick, any parting words?
Yeah, just as I mentioned earlier, just the message for me today is hope. That's pretty much it. Uh, I'm a man of few words, so you're not going to get a whole lot of me.
That's not always, but we'll go with that. We'll let him have that for today. So thank you if you tuned in. Again, this was a group of us from the Patreon, Big Miracle Energy, Right-Minded Thinkers. We get together now twice a month. Tommy was all for it and helped kind of push me forward on that. So now twice a month, one time we will be live here on YouTube. The other time is on a Zoom call privately and only a part of the Patreon group. So if you're interested, come check it out. We would love to have you join us. The next call was actually scheduled, you guys, for next Sunday already. So that will be the plan. Next Sunday, that will be our private one. So we will not be live on YouTube next week. Constantine and I will not be either. So if you miss us and you love spending your Sundays with us, go sign up for Right-Minded Thinker. That is a shameful plug. And join us. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for having such a beautiful discussion in spirit. What a great way to start the day, to start the new year starting on Easter. Can we do that? Like, is that possible? Sure.
Why not?
So happy Easter. So much love, everyone. Go out there, be an extension of love. And when you are interacting with any of those family members today that you may not feel so great about, try to do what Jesus would do and meet them with love. Just give it a try today. Bye.
Bye bye.